You have to go in settings and do a little bit lighter.
What if you could get paid for years spent resentfully cutting fat checks to your cable company? Well, if answered correctly, the following question could land a frustrated cable customer like you a piece of a whopping $2.2 trillion jackpot, along with the potential extinction of your high-priced cable bill. Are you ready? Here it is. In a world full of new entertainment options, which cable TV killer could turn into the most valuable investment for your portfolio? Is it A, Netflix, B, Amazon.com, C, Time Warner HBO, or D, Outer Wall Redbox? I'll reveal the answer in about 3.5 minutes. But first, let's check out what's at stake here.
My wife and I went to visit our oldest daughter this weekend at her college dorm. You know how it is. She's a college student, but she thinks she has everything figured out already. We talked about her classes, her roommates, the food in the cafeteria, and then my daughter said something that floored me. It wasn't about the boys down the hall, thankfully. It was an investing tip. Maybe the best anyone's ever given me, believe it or not. It is in a minute. And what it means for the winner-take-all holy war. But she thinks she has everything figured out already. We talked about her classes, her roommates, the food in the cafeteria, and then my daughter said something that floored me. It wasn't about the boys down the hall, thankfully. It was an investing tip. Maybe the best anyone's ever given me, believe it or not. I'll reveal.
Just play the damn game.
What if you could get paid for years spent resentfully cutting fat checks to your cable company? Well, if answered Are you ready? Here it is. In a world full of new entertainment options, which cable TV killer could turn into the most valuable investment for your portfolio? Is it A, Netflix, B, Amazon.com, C, Time Warner HBO, or D, Outer Wall Redbox? I'll reveal the answer in about 3.5 minutes. But first, let's check out what's at stake here.
My wife and I went to visit our oldest daughter this weekend at her college dorm. You know how it is. She's a college student, but she thinks she has everything figured out already.
Okay.
We talked about her classes, her roommates, the food in the cafeteria, and then my daughter said something that floored me. It wasn't about the boys down the hall, thankfully. It was an investing tip. Maybe the best anyone's ever given me, believe it or not. I'll reveal what it is in a minute, and what it means for the winner-take-all holy war that companies like Google, Apple, Amazon.com, and Netflix are gearing up for this fall. I'll also tell you about the 3 surprisingly overlooked stocks I was able to zero in on when I took my daughter's insight straight to 2 of the world's top professional investors. They showed me why these companies are poised to explode. All 3 of them are up big since last January, and they made a simple comparison that's really changed the way I look at the future of this once beloved industry. But first, I want to ask you a question that's been on my mind lately. As I try to get over the sticker shock of this first tuition bill, and as I think about the kind of financial freedom I want my kids to have, what's the secret to making a fortune? Is it education, hard work, connections, or just good luck? According to a growing body of research, all of those things help. But there's another factor that matters a whole lot more. Making a fortune requires imagination. Now, when I say imagination, I don't mean wishful thinking. You know, visualize what you want in your mind's eye, and then you'll get it. You and I both know that's pure bull. What I mean is imagining a different world. A world almost like the one we live in now, but a little bit better. Maybe a lot better. That's what great businessmen like Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, and Steve Jobs did to make their billions. It's also what great investors like Peter Lynch and Warren Buffett have always done. And it's the secret behind the simple investment strategy I want to tell you about today. Now, unfortunately, there's another side to this story, and you can probably guess what it is. Losing a fortune requires a lack of imagination. Just ask a newspaper publisher or anyone who invested in that industry in recent years. Ouch. We still read newspapers. In fact, we read them more than we ever did. But we don't read them in quite the same way, and that means newspaper publishers and investors have watched helplessly as more than half of their money swirled right down the drain. Without an emergency loan from an eccentric Mexican billionaire, the richest man in the world, even the granddaddy of them all, the New York Times, would have gone bankrupt. Were there warnings this would happen? Of course there were. Back in 1993, a man named Gordy Thompson worked for the Times. His job title was Internet Services Manager, and I'm sure the big bosses at his company had no idea who he was or what that really meant. What did he try and fail to tell them? When a 14-year-old kid can blow up your business in his spare time, not because he hates you, but because he loves you, then you've got a problem. See, Thompson was in the habit of hanging out on internet message boards, and he noticed that fans of the Miami Herald's popular humor columnist Dave Barry were reposting Barry's columns online, so people who couldn't read the Herald could enjoy them. In other words, the greatest competitive threat for newspapers was the popularity of their own content. People wanted more of it, and they wanted it instantly.
Did you catch that last sentence? People want their content instantly. That's why the companies in the instant video business are so profitable right now, and why the cable companies are shaking in their boots. So which company is the ultimate cable killer? Surprisingly, none of them. Of course, you probably couldn't go wrong by investing in them, but the real riches will be claimed by 3 companies quietly flying under the radar who already have a strong foothold in this industry. And as we speak, they're perfectly positioned for a $2.2 trillion takeover of the content-on-demand business.
Sound familiar? It's the same thing that happened to the book industry with Amazon.com and now ebooks on demand. It's the same thing that happened to the financial industry when we started trading our own stocks online instead of using traditional stockbrokers. And to the record companies that once ruled the music industry with an iron fist. The list goes on and on. Did people stop traveling? No, they stopped paying travel agents. Did people stop talking on the phone? No. In fact, they started carrying their phones in their pockets wherever they went. Did people stop buying stuff? No. But enough of them stopped buying it at big box department stores that the industry is now collapsing almost overnight. And you better believe there was a Gordy Thompson every time sounding the alarm, telling the corporate bosses and the Wall Street know-it-alls to use a little imagination, saying, people want what they want, when they want it, where they want it, and how they want it. And if we don't figure out a way to give it to them, they'll get it somewhere else. But those guys never listen, even though we all agree that the internet is still in the process of transforming our daily lives. Even after we've seen it make forward-thinking investors mega rich and bring once mighty industries to their knees time and time again. That's why I wasn't too surprised when I heard what Robert Johnson said about the shaky state of his $2.2 trillion industry last summer at a conference in Sun Valley, Idaho. If you recognize the name, he's one of the CEOs who helped build its current business model in the 1970s and 1980s. In the next 2 or 3 years, something's got to give. At some point, the consumer is going to say enough is enough. Remember, this isn't an isolated commentator with an axe to grind. It's one of the most powerful men in the business, warning his fellow fat cats that their bloated, inefficient industry may collapse by 2014. So today is an interesting day for you, because today you get something quite rare, a second chance. Actually, the way I figure it, it's your 8th chance, and quite possibly your last chance to capture this kind of sky-high profit multiple. Plus, taking advantage of this opportunity couldn't be any easier. You don't need to know any Manhattan trader jargon, and you don't have to predict when some gee-whiz laboratory prototype will be ready for prime time. You just need to connect the dots and use a little imagination. Because the truth is, what I'm about to say should be completely obvious. So obvious that it took a teenager to explain it to me. The powers that be may refuse to believe it, but it's already happening right in front of our eyes. See, the real revolutions are the ones that happen so quietly and so completely that you never even notice them until they're already over. And then you have trouble remembering that they happened at all, because the new way of doing things just seems better and more natural. Meanwhile, someone who knew the score all along is counting up all the money. But I need to warn you, this could get a little emotional, because I'm about to take away something you love, something 99% of us enjoy every day. Something that, in our hearts, many of us have a deeper relationship with than we do with anything else in our lives. And I'm going to pull the plug. I promise I'll give it back to you, better than you. In fact, I'll show you how you can get all of what you love about it and none of what you hate about it. And more importantly, you'll discover how to invest in the next great transformation of the internet age and why it will be the biggest of all. But since I'm asking for your trust, allow me a proper introduction. My name is Tom Connor, and I work for a company called The Motley Fool. It's a small company with a hugely ambitious goal: to help everyday investors like you and me systematically build our wealth simply by leading us to great companies that we can buy and hold over the long term. Sounds like common sense, right? But when David and Tom Gardner founded The Motley Fool in 1993, it was a message the Wall Street establishment didn't want to hear. And in the years that followed, David and Tom did point their readers to great companies, especially ones that use the power of imagination and the power of the internet to overtake the 7 dinosaur industries we just discussed. Like Amazon.com, which changed the way we read and shop, or Priceline.com, which changed the way we book vacations. Meanwhile, Wall Street insiders stuck to the same dirty game, losing trillions of our money on derivative swaps and flash crashes, almost causing a second Great Depression, and scaring ordinary investors away from the stock market by making them lose faith in the proven power of capitalism to create life-changing wealth. Maybe that's why former U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission Chairman Arthur Levitt says The Motley Fool is as close to being an effective investor advocate as any organization. But like I said, it wasn't Tom or David Gardner who clued me into this new idea, which may prove to be even bigger than Amazon, Priceline, or their other winners. Though they were the ones who showed me exactly how to take action and invest. And it wasn't any of the eggheads I work with here in the software development department at The Motley Fool either. It was my daughter, when she said, "But Dad, why would I need cable to watch TV?" As you've probably figured out by now, when I hinted about the 8th dinosaur that's about to be massively disrupted by the internet, I was talking about the $2.2 trillion entertainment industry. And more specifically, about the cable and satellite providers that many of us fork over more than $2,000 of our hard-earned money to year after year. Even though we're seeing more ads and less real programming than ever. Even though their customer service is so bad that according to the American Consumer Satisfaction Index, 3 of the top 5 most hated companies in America are cable providers. Even though they're getting sued left and right for deceptive hidden fees.
Actually, I am, yeah. Get in, brush your teeth, I'll be in 5 minutes.